Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 35 in the book of 1 Timothy, the last little podcast in the book of 1 Timothy. I am touched in the last chapters, verses 4, 5, and 6, as I'm reviewing it here today, all the care that Paul has for Timothy. And one of the ways he's expressing care is by caution and charging him. There's all these cautions. He says, don't swerve, don't shipwreck, don't wander from the faith, don't pierce yourself with harm. Don't depart from the faith. Basically, he says and concludes in the last line of the book, guard this, guard the deposit. Don't turn away. So that's kind of a big theme for today. I liked in chapter 4, verse 8, how he talks about training in godliness, and it was kind of a call for all the athletes out there. Why? Because physical training is good for here, but godliness training is good for here and there. The why of it is to bring all your friends and family home with you to heaven. And how do we do it? By using our gifts and our effort and our work. We looked at Jim Redmond. Remember, he was the father of the Olympian who busted a hamstring, and he runs alongside his son and helps him to the finish line. And we looked at that as a definition of encouragement, which is more than an exhortation. It's like an invitation. It's a call to one side. Chapter 5 talks a lot about widows, and we really need to honor them because they've had it tough. They were torn from their husbands. They're torn from their children. They're marked by some tragedy, and they are all alone, sort of, yet they're not alone because they set their hope on God. So let's honor them. Chapter 5 talks about a lot about leadership and talks about people that rule well, which is a tough job. Who do you want over you? You want someone who rules well, for sure. They're worthy of double honor, who teach well and express their authority in a shepherding way. So we're supposed to find a leader who rules well, and then our job, follow him well. Another thing is this. There's a fail-safe. Well, what happens when pastors, elders fail? And fortunately, the Bible has an answer for that. There's this discipline process that's public and probably painful in 520. And why is it there? Well, so that elders never want to do it again, specifically so that in a holy way, elders can hear and fear, quote unquote, and take all the necessary steps to stay out of sin. So in a sense, what kind of men do we want over us? We want men as elders and overseers that stand in fear, careful shepherds, and kind of go find one of those people. Remember, of course, just a regular principle that all work is a witness of internal reality, and how we start action is usually by our mind. So let our mind precede our action. Let our thinking lead the way. Chapter 6 talks a lot about money, and that is, don't follow teachers who think godliness is a means of great gain. And then personally is, don't be a person who thinks that godliness is a means of great gain. Why? Because the risks are high, and you will pierce yourself with many pangs, and you will plunge yourself into rule, and you can make a shipwreck out of your spirituality by making a financial shipwreck in your attitude. Because God tells us how to be truly wealthy. Remember, he's the great gain. And if we get him, we wouldn't trade it for all the riches of a Rockefeller. So the next world operates without money. So let's leave this world not with a lot of money, but let's leave with the pearl of great price. You can't get his riches at any other price than by faith. We looked at the surgical caution of don't needle stick yourself, don't pierce yourself with the love of money and crave it, for it will be harmful. And again, in chapter 6, he talks about some things in the spiritual walk, and we used Gandalf and the Balrog in Lord of the Rings as a picture of this, that some things are best fought by taking flight. We used Gandalf's line, fly, you fools. And similarly, Paul warns Timothy, flee certain things. Why? So that we can live to fight another day and fight other battles and get to the good stuff. We looked at reputation. What we do here affects his reputation, and what I do now can affect what people think about Jesus. Very sobering. So we want to be well thought of now so that Jesus can be well thought of until that day comes. And don't be that guy who people reproach the name of Christ because of you. I went off in a little bit of a tangent, which I love doing, in chapter 6 about immortality, that you are 100% immortal. You will live forever. And how did you get to be that way? Well, God created you to have the capability to be immortal. He had to be immortal to do it. So he had the capacity, and you are immortal. I'm immortal because God, the immortal one, gives it to us. And obviously we know that death and decay and funerals are a part of the world, and we weren't created that way. But that status is temporary, and death is going to be defeated. So it just struck me that we are 100% immortal, and we will live with God immortally, or without God immortally. So let's do what we have to do and say, I want to be with you. And then he comes back near the end of chapter 6. He comes back to money again and riches. He talks about them being temporary and uncertain, and they can cause pride and separate us from people by having us say, I'm above you. And they compete with our hopes. And finally, rich people are supposed to be rich in good works and generous in reality and ready to be generous, so both of hand and of mind. Well, in reviewing chapters 4 through 6, I was impressed again of all the cautions that the older Paul gives to the younger Timothy. Don't swerve, don't shipwreck your faith, don't wander from the truth, don't pierce yourself with the wrong love of money specifically, don't depart from the faith. And basically he says at the end, guard this treasure that I've given you. So the title today is let's guard the treasures here in 1 Timothy. Thank you so much for listening. Tomorrow, we're going to move on to Titus.